All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass.
Welcome to another episode of A Swift Kick in the Ass. This is your host, John Curren. With me today, I think I have a legend here, really. Uh, Jay Paterno is here. He is an author, a coach. He's a commentator for deep in college football. Uh, he is he's the son of a legendary coach, Joe Paterno. Um, and you've spent over 2 decades coaching yourself, and 17 with Penn State. Now, I have to admit, I am not the biggest sportsman. Okay, but I follow my college team, and that was in the SEC at the University of Florida. So um, I know all about hard times. But more so, but welcome to the show, Jay. I'm so excited to have you because uh my background at the University of Florida, I studied health science education. And actually, before I went into that, I took exercise and sports sciences and took coaching classes and so forth. And I think they really can help you at a very personal level, not just at the team level, but on a very individual level. Um, so I think it's going to be great because this audience is interested in resilience and personal growth. And I know there are a lot of sports fans out there. I mean, I love football. So this is going to be a great conversation.
I'm
And
looking forward to it.
and also the legacy component of this. So, uh, my father, he was just, I wouldn't say he was an ordinary man. He was an extraordinary man, but he was not well known, even to the police. He kind of stayed under the radar. That was just a joke. He would have hated that too. Um, we mentioned before the show that this is a swift kick in the ass podcast. And my dad would not have liked that that name. He was much more proper. And you were saying that too. Your
Yeah.
dad would have said a swift kick in the butt.
Yeah. Well, pants. He would say
Yeah,
swift kick in the pants. Yeah. I mean, it was, it's, he was unusual in his profession because, the stereotypical coach is out there cussing up a storm at his players and they don't do right. And he never heard him drop the F bomb in my entire life. And I think I heard him say, SHIT. I'm spelling
uh-huh.
it out because that's what he wanted me to do once. And then about the raciest thing he used to say is he said, "Don't get in a pissing contest with a skunk," which is great advice, by the way. But that word was borderline for him. So yeah, and his coaches, we all had to follow those rules. For years he had a profanity box. So if a player or a coach, said something, they had to put a dime in. If he said something, he had to put a quarter in. But I don't think I ever saw him put a quarter in it.
Having such a strong father figure in your life too, I can really relate to that. And I didn't go into the family business, but I assume you were raised in football, that football was your life, right? Growing up all throughout your life, football has been key to it.
Well, I kind of made it that way. My parents were very much of the mindset like, hey, do whatever you want. Don't think you have to coach. And their whole idea behind it was, you do what you want to do and you pursue whatever dreams you have. It
Hmm.
just so happened that I wanted to coach. And so as a result, that's kind of the path I took. When I went to college and played at Penn State, I wasn't really a great player by any stretch of the imagination, but I was good enough to be on the team. But I knew I wanted to coach, and that would be part of my education process. But I had majored in political science and social science and other things, which when you get into big time college football, the political science part may have been the best prep for coaching of anything. But so they really kind of pushed me to do something else, but I kept coming back to it, and that's where I ended up.
And you survived for a long. I mean, 17 years at Penn State, that's a long, really long time. It seems like such a cutthroat environment and for coaching, especially these days. I hate to get attached to any coach at the University of Florida because they they either perform or they're out the door.
Yeah,
So,
I think the impatience of the game, and it's one of the things I talked about in the book Blitzed, is how impatient fans have become, but not just fans, trustees. And I'm on the board of trustees at Penn State now. So
okay.
even a place like Penn State, where we haven't been quick to fire people, although we just fired James Franklin this past fall, even that was after a dozen years. But the pressure to win, the pressure to win now, has gotten so big, and people are so impatient that you rarely have a chance to even kind of to build a program. I mean,
Hmm.
Kurt Signetti did an unbelievable job in Indiana, won the national championship his second year there. This is not meant in any way as criticism, but in some ways he ruined it for everybody because everybody thinks now I'll go out and get all this money and I'll sign a roster and we'll win a national championship in 2 years. That's not realistic. And so, it's going to make it even worse. And those are the kind of pressures that so many coaches are under. And one of the elements of the book, Blitz, is the mental health aspect of it
Yes.
and how coaches are on the clock 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can get blindsided at any time with something that doesn't give them a chance to really ever not feel that pressure.
Yeah, that's true. And I think a lot of people in leadership positions know that feeling, know the stress of and being on 24 hours a day. Uh, I have a friend who's a doctor. I have a couple friends who are doctors, but they all say, I asked them, how do you separate your personal life from your professional life? And you're like, you don't. It's
Yeah.
just it's especially these days, and in so many different professions and careers. I mean, there's such a gray area between personal life and professional life, and I mean, throw in social media. And I know that's something like too that you like to talk about also, the impact of social media on sports. And I think it affects everybody. Everyone wants to put their opinion out there, and they're in a position of saying things with really having no consequence whatsoever. They can say whatever they want, and it has
And they
no,
don't even put their actual name to it anymore.
right. That's true.
I just saw a news story the other day that the government of Greece is talking about passing legislation that will not allow people to have social media accounts under other names, and they would have to prove a connection. I'm like, yeah, about time. Like maybe we get some
Yeah.
people here to talk about it. But you talk about how you handle the pressures, and it's like you can never detach from it. Well, one of the things that we had for years when I coached at Penn State, there was a blue line when you walked on the practice field. And when you crossed that blue line, it was a symbolic kind of line that the idea was when you cross the blue line, you can't do anything about the girl you're dating or a sick relative or a test you have coming up or a test you failed or whatever.
Hmm.
All you can do is worry about being the best football player, becoming a better football player or a better coach, you're doing a better job, whatever it is, in that moment. And then once you cross back over that line, now you could take on those other things. But the lesson wasn't just that the blue line was for practice. The lesson for our players was when you cross the blue line into a classroom setting, you then had to understand that you couldn't do anything about the pass you dropped in a game on Saturday when you're getting ready for a test in math on Monday or Wednesday.
Hmm.
And then it extended, Joe used to tell us as coaches, he would say, hey, when you go home, be home. Don't be thinking about when you're with your kids and doing things with your family. Don't think about what you got to do on 4th and 8 3 weeks from now. Think about, be there physically and mentally. So it's a device to do that, but it's not always easy to do that when you got a phone strapped to your hip. And that's the difference. And I think that's the real challenge is there's this pressure. And that theme comes up over and over in the book is the mental health challenges of that. And at one point in the book, and it's a novel, the coach is advised by someone who's helping him with some mental health, improving his mental health to
Hmm.
when he and his wife go away for a vacation for 2 of those days to leave the phone off. And that if they
Is it
really needed him, they would call his wife's phone or whatever it is. And so he goes absolutely, it drives him crazy. He just like, "Oh, I
just
can't,
2 days?
just 2 days. Like you should basically leave someone, it's the summer, you're not in season, leave
Hmm.
someone in charge at home and it just cutting that cord just for that time. And I mean, and it's a real challenge for guys.
No, it is. It's so funny because I watched a lot of YouTube, and there was a couple out there that bought a an old RV, like from the mid 70s. It was in perfect shape. And what they decided to do was take a trip, but like it would be just like back in 1975 or something like that. So they left their phones at home. They brought maps, and after a
You have to
couple
be a certain
days,
age to even know how to use a map anymore now.
yeah, I mean, no GPS. And you
Yeah.
realize, I was watching it and I'm thinking, it sounds really easy to do. Oh, you just leave your phone behind, but we really are tied to it and use it in so many different ways these days. I mean, how would you get where you're going?
Yeah. Well,
But
I can remember my first year at Penn State coaching. I was assigned when you go out recruiting, we had geographic areas.
okay.
So I got a big chunk of the state of Ohio where I had not spent a lot of time in my life. So I basically went out, bought the maps, hey, what's the address of the high school that I got to go to? Okay, such and such road, and it would say the grid, and you circle it,
Oh
you
yeah, my
circle it.
gosh.
So you go to
Remember
like
that.
7 or 8 high schools in a day in the spring, and you have to circle the 7 schools on the map. And then where should I go first? What's next to the other one? So I literally would write out the instructions like turn left here, turn left there. And I always screw it up. And I'd pull over somewhere, get the map out. What road am I on? But I mean, now, I mean, I shudder to think of like what would happen if the cell phone systems went down,
Oh, it would
and
be
all of a sudden everybody had to
terrible.
go back to. I still have those skills. A lot of people don't. The question is,
So,
where would you buy a map?
so my father used to say, you always need to learn how to do things like in your head
Yeah,
or manually on paper, like for instance, like using a calculator. I remember he
yeah,
was like, you don't want a calculator, don't use a calculator. Learn how to do it in your head because you're not always going to have a calculator with
yeah.
you. And I think the same thing really applies. You need to know these basic skills, need to learn how to read a map. Uh,
Yeah, I mean that sounds like Magellan or Christopher Columbus,
it really does,
using
as
the
I say,
stars to navigate. Now, like people are like, you did what? I'm like, yeah, you got out a map.
bring your sextant.
Yeah, you charted a course. It was incredible. You know?
No, that's no, it's funny. It's not really it it's not really a generational issue, I don't think, or it shouldn't be. It should be something that continues generation to generation to say you need to carry on these basic skills and know how these basic things operate. Like take for instance, cars. Most men, and I hate to sound sexist, but you know, most people don't know about mechanics, even basic mechanics. How to put air in a tire, it
Yeah.
would be stressful for some people, and those people are going to be in a big bind if they don't, if they get into trouble. But let's get back to leadership and resilience. And so these are tough times right now. And resilience is really how you stand up to adversity
Yeah.
and how you deal with adversity. So, how have any good words of wisdom for how to, maintain maybe your mental state in all this chaos? I mean, I know it gets very, I mean, I watch college football. It especially rivalry games too, where I mean, and it's brutal. I mean,
Yeah.
football is very physical. very, very physical and taxing and on your body.
Yeah.
It's a tough game.
Well, I think the biggest thing is this: whether you're coaching a game or building a football program or running a company. I think the most important thing is when you are rising to the level of leadership, as you start to build towards that moment when you're going to be the person that calls the shots. I mean, for 12 years when it was 4th and 5, there's 110,000 people in the stadium, maybe 12 million people watching on TV. And you're playing Ohio State or Michigan, and you got to make the call on 4th and 5 to win the game. That's a pressure. But you don't just arrive at that moment. You have to be thinking about that moment for a long, long time. So I think what it comes down to, you really need to, at the outset, have a sense of who you are. I think that's the most important thing, is know who you are and have a set of values that are foundational. Obviously, tactics, strategy, and things are going to change and should change because times change, circumstances change, but they need to be rooted in who you are and what you are and how you do certain things. And that's how you endure. That's how you're able to stay in it for as long as you can, is by having that sense and not compromising on the things that define what you
Mm-hmm.
are. And if you're good enough, you're good enough. If not, you took your shot and did what you did. But as long as and sometimes there's circumstances beyond your control that you have that cause failure or cause you to lose, things to go the wrong way, because you can't control everything in life.
Right.
But if you can look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say, this is what I stand for, and I did not waver, from a mental health standpoint and from a leadership standpoint, you can feel confident in what you did. And I think if you have the foundational values that you don't compromise, it's easier to get people to follow you because there's a consistency in what you do. And that, to me, the consistency is what builds credibility, and credibility is what enables you to get other people to do things that sometimes maybe they don't want to do, but are for the good of the order.
Yeah, too, I was thinking too about what you were saying earlier and kind of how you're compartmentalized. Like when you step over the blue line, you enter this realm. You're focused and you've got your mind focused on a task. You are there and you are present. I hear that in what you're saying now too. Um, you might find yourself in an extremely stressful position. You're at 4th and 5. You're trying to win the game, but you had a whole game leading
Yep.
leading up to that. So what that was, that wasn't just a surprise. It
Yeah.
it built to that, and a lot of it was a consequence of prior plays and decisions and just the way things, happen and how you deal with it. But leaving it, getting back to being true to yourself as being the most important. I think that plays into kind of pouring it out and leaving it all out there on the field. When you're honest with yourself, you can pick yourself back up and walk off the field. If you're lying out there, you got to watch your back. You might not leave yourself, you might leave a part of yourself out there after you leave because you weren't true to yourself. I don't know if that might sound a little bit out there. It
No,
made
no, no.
sense
It's
in my
exactly
head.
right. And I think one of the things that, if you look around this country right now, and I'm working on a book on leadership, which is a project I'm fairly well deep into. But one of the reasons I'm writing this book is because I've been fortunate to have been exposed to a lot of great leaders. I was a surrogate speaker on Obama's 2008 campaign, among other things I did in my life. I've been around senators, presidents, CEOs of major corporations, people that are leaders in all different walks of life, and
Mhm.
also some people that are, most people think are ordinary people, but have done extraordinary things
Yeah.
that you wouldn't even know about. But one of the things that comes out in where we are, and that's really the basis for what I'm writing this book about, is what we view as leadership right now. I think is in some ways very dysfunctional. But what we value, and when I say we, I mean a collective, not everybody, but
Yeah.
what we as a society seem to value is a leadership is never admitting you're wrong. That's it. Like I said this, and we're going to do this, and no matter what, we're doing it. Well, this happened, this happened, this happened. You're wrong. I didn't say that, and then you double down.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get to that point, there's no compromise. And every great thing that's happened in this country has been a result of compromise among people who really believed certain things and found common ground to do it. And
Yes.
once you get to that point where you never, and all the puzzle pieces fit together. So yeah, maybe it's not everything I want or everything you want, but we find where we can interlock and get some things done. And all these pieces fit together to create something far more beautiful. But without if you never admit you're wrong, and you can never give the other person credit for having been right or maybe helping you see something that you couldn't otherwise
Mm-hmm.
see, all your puzzle pieces are just squares, and the minute the table gets jolted, we all separate. And I think that's one of the reasons that's one of the lessons in this book is how do we create a society where we can fit together.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
That's quite a visual right there, if you think about it. The different shapes that we
Yeah.
all are and we bring to the table, when it all comes together, it forms a stronger structure. Like,
Yeah, no question.
but you put together a weak structure and the wind blows, knocks it over.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Leadership really should be able to admit when it makes mistakes and says, you know what, I thought this was it, but this isn't it. I think that's important. I think that's important to do to yourself and admit to yourself when you're wrong. You don't always have to be right. Um, I find that especially where positive change and personal growth comes along, a lot of times we have blinders on. We have a fixed sense of how things should be. And, especially in college football, I mean, I know the Gators, they're saying, oh, our focus is to win. If we lose, we've done something wrong. And I mean, that's a winning mentality and that's going to win you a lot of games, but there's a whole huge cost that comes to that. Um, Football at the end of the game, it is a game, but when you apply it to life, it's your life.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. Uh, I think it's better to work together and you know uh, admit when you're wrong and have a bigger viewpoint that brings everyone together and plays to their strengths. Um,
Yeah,
because
there's no question. I think the kind of people you really want in an organization that are really truly want to be led, I think they respect accountability and the taking of accountability.
hmm
The problem so much now and is that when someone gets in a leadership role, so many people want to be around that leadership role. They want to be the right hand guy or woman of that leader or whatever it is. And so they feel like if I just tell this person everything out they want to hear, and that's the danger you get into leadership is that sometimes you get people around you that are not telling you what they really think. They're doing what they think will keep them in that orbit.
hmm
And that's a real dangerous place to be because, as you mentioned with the blinders, it's easy to convince you. Look, we all have egos, and to varying degrees, and people that want to get to a certain point. Um, it's easy to when you get there to sit back and go, boy, am I real? Wow, I'm really good. I'm really smart. My dad, my early in my dad's career, he had gone undefeated in three times in his first 7, 8 years. Just had started off really, really well and had a great career for a long time. But early in his career, he was shaving one day in the morning and he yells to my mom. He says, "Hey, Sue, do you know how many great football coaches there are in this country?" And she immediately said, "One less than you think." And he never forgot that. And it's a great line. And I mean, my
That's
mom had a great wit, and I mean, the fact that she came back at him with that right away is
that's so
totally
funny.
on brand for my mom. I mean, nobody said on brand back in 1974, but you get the point. But it's important to have people around like that. We early in the 2000s, we had some down years at Penn State, and it got to the point where there were some people that were hesitant to tell Joe what he needed to hear. And I was one of those guys that always tried to tell him that. And it got to the point where you got nothing but negative things to say. And at one point there was a breakthrough, and he said, "Okay, I got it. I get it." Okay. And then we were able to kind of, the last 7 years, we were on the top 17. I think we had the sixth best record in the country. So we got the thing head the right way. So, but it took people willing to say what needed to be said. It also took a leader who was willing to hear.
Hmm.
Years earlier, he had a really talented team that didn't achieve what he thought they should achieve. And he said, I'm gonna find out what's really going on. And he put together a group of players. I think there were 10 in total that he had breakfast with once a week and said, tell me what you don't think I want to hear. And they would come in and say, we've got this problem or that problem, or, so I mean, there was one time when there were some players on our team that, we drug tested pretty aggressively because we wanted guys to be able to have a crutch. When people said, "Hey, why don't you smoke some weed with us?" Well, I say, "Well, I don't know, I could get drug tested anytime."
Hmm.
But the number of times we were testing had fallen off, and some players came to Joe, the head coach, said, "We're concerned there might be some kids that are smoking weed, and you need, that you're not drug testing. We're not drug testing as aggressively as we did, so we don't have that out, and we don't want guys on our team that aren't as focused as we are."
Hmm.
And that was a really honest criticism. And the great thing is he had fostered that mentality to where the players felt they could come and have that conversation with him, and that's important.
Yeah, saying the difficult things. They're, having those hard conversations. That's a true part of leadership. You know, um, I keep thinking about
Did my
nat
picture just flip?
yeah, just you're fine now. It went and it came back.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Um, I've been thinking about, there are natural leaders, and then and I mean, are there not really natural leaders? Are they made? Is it your
Yeah.
experience? I mean, like, are you seeking, like, do you seek to be when you're seeking to be a coach? When you had that in mind, you had a goal in mind, right? So,
Yeah.
how do you, when you do that, are you trying to learn the best? How do you go about that?
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of have to be a follower before you're put in a leadership position, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
the general way of things happen. Um, and you can't have like a team full of leaders because they're just following themselves. Then that's not a team. There's no I in team, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's one of the great questions about leadership. Are they born or are they made? And I don't think anybody's necessarily. I don't think there's a gene for it. I don't think it's genetic. I think there are some people that, as they grow up, they have exposure to certain things in life,
mhm,
and they that some of them just kind of develop that way. They develop a natural charisma, or they develop a work ethic that sets them apart. But it can be any number of threads that get you to where you can advance into being a leader. Um, so I think it's a matter of there are some innate skills people have, and when you have an aptitude for a certain thing, whether you have a great mind for math that makes you somebody who's very astute in business or that kind of thing, or whether you have a great aptitude for or being an orator and getting other people to do other things you want, or you grow up with an ability to relate to other people, even
mhm,
people unlike yourself. I think those things you can identify those pretty early in life. But in order to then develop into a great leader, I think it comes down to uh, keeping your mouth shut sometimes and listening to people who are ahead of you, who have done certain things that you want to do. It comes down to having a curious mind, because the minute you think you've got it all figured out, circumstances change immediately.
Isn't that the truth?
And I mean, there's a and I'm Urban Meyer, who was
Yep.
in Florida at one time. I've got Urban and I are become really good friends. And one of the things, it was opportunity meets. There's an equation. I'm going to screw it up, but essentially, every situation creates a decision, and that decision creates an outcome. And once that outcome is realized, now you're back to square one to where your situation, and it's an ongoing cycle. So, I mean, the minute you think, oh, I've got this whole leadership thing figured out, something's going to change, and you're going to go, I don't have it all figured out if you're smart. So it's in the book, The Prince, Machiavelli talks about it's human nature that when times are good, that we don't think of when there will be a time of storm, but you need to prepare for the storm constantly. And again, I'm paraphrasing that.
Oh yeah.
But that's it. The human nature is such that complacency is very, very easy to slide into. And if you want to endure as a leader, you have to have the ability to keep trying to anticipate and prepare. Just as we talked about 4th and 5 early on. You think about 4th and 5 all week in a game week. Like, what might they do? What will we do? All these different situations. So that's part of being prepared to be in that moment.
Yeah, that's it is interesting because I mean you're practicing and preparing for each game. And I mean it's you go through a regiment, I mean, in training and filling your toolbox, your arsenal, so that when those situations and conditions apply, you have a range of different things that you can do. Um,
I mean, I
I
think
just think,
I'll give you an example. Like, so in 2005, we were playing a game on the road at Northwestern,
okay.
and we had not played well the whole game, but we were sloppy. It was a wet weather day. We're out there. It's just one of those things where it was a bad environment, the whole 9 yards. But we got to a point in the game where we were down 2 points, and it was 4th and 15.
Mhm.
So it's 4th and 15. It's like, oh my God, the game's over. Yet we had practiced to play for that down and distance a number of times, and used the film that we had seen on Northwestern to anticipate what they were likely to do. So as soon as we got to that situation, our our quarterback knew what play was going to come in. He had a pretty good idea as to what defense they were going to be in, and he went out and executed. We went in and won the game and went on and won the Big Ten. But that's all stuff that you have to prepare for and you
Yeah.
practice during the week. So once it came to it, there was that moment, and there was the preparation for it, and nobody was surprised by what came.
It's interesting though, as a spectator sitting up there, uh, and you see your team in that situation, and I just, especially with the Gators, I know exactly, like, I just they get to a certain point and you think, oh, the game's over. How and
You got to be more optimistic. We got to get you more optimistic. Although
well, no,
you
I
haven't
know
had a
I
lot
am
of
now.
room.
I am now with the new coach. I am with the new coach. I think we have a good chance. But I just remember thinking, how did the players, it's obvious you can't win it, but you don't see the players giving up. I mean, they leave it out there on the field right to the very end,
Yeah.
until that whistle blows. And it just amazes me about football.
Well,
That determination and
football. The thing about football is hard. It's and not that other sports aren't hard, but when you watch, like if you watch the Stanley Cup playoffs, those guys literally leave everything they have. That I mean, it's hard. Football is
teeth.
hard because the collisions. The collisions. It's not a contact sport. It's a
Yeah.
collision sport, and you have people running at each other full speed with bad intent. not evil necessarily, but bad intent. Like, I'm going to hit you and try and knock you down. You're going to try and run me over. So you have to have a certain mentality, even step in that arena, and to get to the level of a Florida or a Penn State or a Texas or you name it. Um, that is something that is innate with the guys that get to that level. And I, you
Hmm.
know, and it should be. Now, there are times where, because of all the hype and all the attention that some of these guys get in recruiting, sometimes that is an end of itself. Like, look how important I am. People know who I am, and this is great. I'm
Yeah.
important. But do you really love football? I think that's the question. And there was a coach I knew, a head coach I knew who's since retired, but they had a lot of success at the school they were at, and then they started to get more 4 and 5 star recruits, and their performance went down. They had a losing
Hmm.
season. And I said, what do you make of it? He said, well, we got into all these high profile kids, and for some of them, they just like being recruited more than they like the attention being recruited more than they liked playing football. So when push came to shove, they didn't compete as hard as they could, and now those kids have all left our program, and we'll get back to what we've been, and they did. And I think that's a lesson
Hmm.
to be learned for everybody.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's as I said earlier, I'm not the biggest, football fan, but I do know the sport, and I do love my team. Um, but it does apply so much to life. Um, I'm so glad to have you on this show for that reason, because it's such a I just love when things connect like that.
Yeah.
Um, and you can learn so much from the game, because life really is a game. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you have to compete every day in life,
Y-
and that's just the way it is. And it takes on different forms of how you compete. But one of the things I talk about in the book is pride. In the book that I'm working on, leadership, is about pride. And for a number of years, I would go to this. I would go to this. I would go to spin classes or whatever, cycle classes
Mhm.
and yoga and stuff. And I would park my car at the end of the parking lot, and there was a trailer park there. So people were living in mobile homes, and the one mobile home closest to the parking lot, guy had a very small plot of grass and very little area outside, but that grass was meticulous. Every His flowers were always beautiful. There
Mhm.
wasn't a weed to be seen, and that guy, even though it was his small patch of earth,
He
it
tended
meant
to it.
it
Yeah.
meant the world to him, and there was a pride in that, always looking really, really good, and it mattered to him. And it does, and we said all the time, no matter how small a thing you're involved in, you may think it's small, but no matter how, and that's how a lot of guys go from starting at the bottom of an organization and getting all the way to the top. You know, when you take every small job that you're involved in, when you first start out seriously, and you do a great job at it, it gets noticed that you pay attention to every detail, and that's really how you get it done. And that's whether football or life or you name it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. So you do have a book called Blitzed Out,
Yep.
and then you're working on another one. So um, I'm looking just here. So well, you keep yourself really busy, don't you?
I
There's no
try.
there's no slowing down. No, I think it's amazing. And to bring out, there's so many mental health is such a huge issue these days, and um, the high stress. I mean, people are just under a lot of stress.
Yeah,
And I,
there's no chance. There's not a lot of chance to turn it off anymore.
no, you're right. And I mean, even, if you think about it, work is stressful, and then the sports we watch, well, that's really stressful. That's really stressful too, especially if your team is losing.
Yeah, and because of email and technology, a good friend of mine is a partner in a big accounting firm, and I won't say his name because he'd kill me for even saying this, but there are times when, you know, like we'll go hiking, for
Yeah.
example. There might be 5:15 on a Thursday, and someone in his office who reports to him will call him or text him like 8 times, like, I need help with this, I need help with that, I need help with this. And, I can see the stress on his face sometimes, like, oh, I got to answer this. Hold on. Whereas, every once in a while I say, well, 35 years ago, that person wanted to figure things out for themselves. Whereas now,
That's
because they can just reach out to you, they want you to walk them through it. And that's part of his job. But I mean, that technology, it creates these stressors on people almost unendingly.
yeah, no, I think you make a really good point. We're looking to so many other people for answers rather than trying to seek them out ourselves. And we just want things handed to us in a lot of ways. I mean, I see that a lot. I have a group of friends I've known, a group of guys I've known for 40 years. And what's interesting is when we all get together, there's one guy who kind of stands out as the leader, and it's like we all become kids around him, like asking dad, you know, can I do this, dad? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, we're old men.
But you fall into old habits.
Yeah, no, you do, and
Because that's probably how it was 40 years ago.
yeah, and it's just so easy. I mean, it's so easy to do, but it's the awareness, first of all, I think too, that make recognizing that, and I kind of pointed that out, and we're like, oh yeah, we need to stop doing that because things change. We probably should start wrapping this up. I appreciate your time and respect your time. Now, this show is a swift kick in the pants. uh, uh, everyone has had a swift kick in the ass, and that I define it as like a something that maybe doesn't seem so positive at the time, but it's this motivational force that kind of moves you forward and kind of gets you on the right track, on the right path. You have any good stories to tell
Oh,
might be a
geez.
good that might be a good swift kick in the ass
Well, I mean,
or pants? You can define it however you like.
well, I think, there were, at the end of my coaching career, there were some circumstances that were beyond my control. And those things happened. And, because of my being a tangent to what became a national news story, even though I had nothing to do with it and was not involved in any way, really kind of cast me as someone that people did not want to coach. So because there was this cloud hanging over because of this news story that really was not something I was involved in. I was not involved in any criminal activity or anything like that, but being around it or being associated with it was something that people attached to me because I knew people involved.
That's happening
So
more and more, unfortunately.
yeah, absolutely.
It's
So
shame. Yeah.
yeah, so as I went to try and get into other get other coaching jobs, there was this constant, well, Jay, I'd love to hire you, but the athletic director doesn't want to have to deal with us at a press conference or this, and those things happen. And so it forced me to sit back and say, okay, what's next? And I can sit around and curl up in a ball and suck my thumb and cry, or I
Hmm.
can get out there and get on with it. And so, I mean, as I started to write, I started writing books, and that was one of it. And I had, I kept hemming and hawing, how do I write this book? And my literary agent, a guy named Al Zuckerman, who has since retired, but Al basically said, Jay, just write the damn thing. He goes, and then sort it out. He goes, but until you keep making excuses to why
Hmm.
you can't, like something else is going to fall out of the sky. This is what you signed up to do right now. This is what life you're supposed to be doing with your life right now. Just get on with it. And he said, I hope, he goes, can you take honest criticism? He said, can I give you some honest criticism? I said, yes, that's the only kind I want. And he was, that moment of tough, like
The
get on
tough
with it,
love. Yeah.
got the book done. It became a best-selling book about my dad, and that got me into other books, got me into TV stuff that I'm doing. So a lot of different things happened because of that one moment where it was, get on, get over what happened to you, get on with the next thing, and let's go. And that was really helpful. And
Oh,
it was a swift kick in the ass.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. You just motivated me because this show, actually started, just to give a little history, it's at the end, but started back in 2013. Well, my dad died in 2013 of ALS. And after he died, I had spent time with him in hospice the last week of his life. And I came home and I just started having a brain dump, just writing all the things about my dad, all the experiences that I had. And I'm writing that. And my best friend, my childhood friend, calls me up and he wanted to wish me a happy birthday, actually. And he says, "We need to start a podcast." I was like, "Sounds great, but what about?" And he's like, "All these things that your dad was teaching you, and he taught him as well, and other neighborhood kids. Um, he was, I guess, a coach, but on a smaller scale for the neighborhood kids. And after his death, I realized that how important it was. So we started this show just because of my dad,
That's
primarily.
great.
And to hear that, just get with it, just get going and keep doing it. You're going to make something happen.
Yeah,
Something's
no
going to
question.
happen. You just got to keep working it. And I'll tell you, this show has been on since 2014. And since I lost my co-host about 6 years ago now to brain cancer, and I've continued on without him. That was a big swift kick in the ass, but life you know, throws you lemons. You can sit there and cry and like you said, sit there in fetal position, sucking your thumb and thinking how terrible life is, or you can do something about it and
Yeah.
make
And
the
it doesn't
best.
take talent to hustle.
No. And when you start going down that road, that's when you start gets you closer to the end game, I think.
Yeah.
You can't see what the end is. We're not fortune tellers, but you got to play the game and you got to run your routes and you got to make adjustments. It's all part of the game.
Yep.
But I thank you for your time. I don't want to keep you over.
No, I appreciate it very much. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jay. I really like meeting you. It's such an honor and to hear your story, and wish you great luck in your new book. In your new book, when is that going to be coming out? And also, how can
I
people
got to
reach
finish writing it. That's the most important thing. But it'll be next year. It'll be a little while.
So, and people can reach and send you little messages to say when you're going to finish that book, Jay?
I'm at that point where about a month and a half ago, I said, "You got to write the damn thing. Let's get it over with." Because I've been talking about it for a long time, and I've got all these pieces and things ready to go, and this lesson and that lesson. Now I got to make them all fit. But people can find me. I'm on whatever it is, X or Twitter now
Okay.
at Jay Paterno. My name spelled out JayPaterno. At Instagram at JV Paterno, my first name, the middle initial V Paterno, and then at jvpaterno.com. Those are three places that are easiest to find me.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, Jay, again, thank you very much for your time and all your wisdom and knowledge and experience bringing that to the show. Really,
I appreciate that very much. Thanks for having me.
thank you. And to my listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of A Swift Kick in the Ass. Please like and subscribe, tell your friends. It really helps. It helps the channel, and keep coming back for more because I'm going to keep having interesting guests, interesting conversations about personal growth and creating resilience in your life. Peace.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hope you got your ass moving. Until then, until the next time, I'm out of here. Peace.